Welcome everyone this evening to the first designer showcase of this year's Afro Fashion Week Milano. We are so thrilled to have Sydney Wakama, the founder of Emeka Suits, with us this evening to give us a tour of their recently launched collection and hear about their unique blend of innovative and sustainable fashion. We'll hear about reclaiming post-colonial supply chains, including a few things that you might be surprised to know about, and the ways that they're valorizing local traditional artisanship in the town where they're based in Kenya. Any questions that you have for Sydney, please write them in the stage chat at any time. You can find them, the chat on the right-hand side of your screen or at the bottom, depending on if you're on mobile or desktop. And whether in English or Italian, feel free to put them in there and we'll get them to Sydney and you'll have a chance to hear his responses. So Sydney, thank you so much for being here with us tonight and the floor is yours.
Cool, thanks. Thanks for the introduction, Jenny. And yeah, hi everybody. As Jenny said, my name is Sydney Wakama. I'm the founder and creative director of Emeka Suits. I'm making these suits right now. I'm going to show you a few more that I have back here, just so you have an idea of what it is that I am producing. Yes, suits, beautiful suits, as you can see. In different, I have all sorts of different colors. All of them are one of a kind. Patterns, velvets, different fabrics, and the reason for that is actually quite unique. But maybe before I go into how exactly these suits are made, I might want to start with how this brand was originally founded and how I ended up, or how these suits came to life and how this brand is set up, basically. So Emeka was originally founded already 2 years ago. I started this project together with my cousin in Nigeria. Let me come a bit closer again. I feel so weird talking so far away. Exactly. I started this project together with my cousin in Nigeria, and we just wanted to create something that brings work to African people, basically, to empower the African industries and build change that is lasting. You know, so the concept of trade rather than aid. And not just pump, you know, whatever donation money or something into the countries, but actually, you know, help innovating and building up the industry so that people can, you know, make their own living. And so yeah, this started 2 years ago together with my cousin. Morgan is his name, and we started making shirts. So just normal, you know, shirts, button-up shirts from the kind of like traditional wax prints. I have one of them here. You probably know these sort of prints, you know, like these sort of fabrics. They're, you know, if you see them, they're mostly associated with African culture, with African fashion. They are used in a lot of, or for a lot of, in a lot of fashion houses that are based in Africa. And also abroad in Europe and in the US, these fabrics are very much, you know, associated with like the continent, Africa, the patterns, the colors, etc., etc. Well, we made shirts out of these fabrics, and I started to do some research on where these fabrics come from and stuff, because I had a big interest in sustainability. I mean, interest is maybe a little bit an understatement. I think sustainability should be a main feature in everyone's design process and in everyone's brand, basically. Like, these are just the challenges we have to face these days. So as I did the research on where these fabrics come from, how sustainable are they, I found out about the whole history of these fabrics, which I actually did not know about beforehand. These fabrics come from Indonesia, and they were brought by the Dutch colonizers. They found the Balinese people and the Indonesian people use certain wax techniques on the fabrics to create these patterns, to make these colorways and stuff like this. And when the colonizers saw that, they basically they copied it, they industrialized it, and they turned it into like a machine sort of process, and brought it to Africa. So now most of these fabrics, especially in the higher class of these sort of wax print fabrics, they're all produced in the Netherlands, and the biggest importer of these fabrics is Africa. So you find that if you look at the fabric itself, it is not really supporting anybody in the African textile industry or anyone, linked to the African fashion industry. It is actually supporting a Dutch company. Nothing against this Dutch company; they make beautiful fabrics. But if your objective is to do something on the continent and lasting for the people there, then this is obviously not the right way to go, in my opinion, at this stage in time. So I decided to scrap this idea. I decided to this is not where I want to go. This is not what I want to do with this, and I let it rest for some time. Like it's very difficult to work in Nigeria. Back then it was still in Nigeria. Corruption and just like the lacking infrastructure and stuff makes it difficult to produce something there and then bring it over to Europe and sell it. But I kept it in mind, and I started to think about what other products are there. Then I had a whole detour into chocolate. This brand was at some point a chocolate brand. We made, because Nigeria is one of the biggest cacao exporters worldwide, so we thought, okay, let's use what is already there and make a product out of that is local, that is indigenous to the African continent. Long story short, this also didn't work out. The chocolate would have been way too expensive. It was just not meant to be like this. Long story short, we arrive at 2020. Here we are. How do these suits come to life? Well, the idea of this project kept on, flickering around in my head, and I was always a fashion nerd. I was always, very into dressing up, very into wearing certain things, especially wearing stuff that no one else really has. And early this year, I was in Kenya. I went to Kenya for an artist residency, mainly for other things. Actually, I was not there for fashion. But it turned out that on this artist residency in Kenya, I met a person who told me about very talented tailors in the nearby village. So I got really excited about it. I was like, who are these tailors? What are you talking about? Show me. So the next day we went over there. We went to the village. It's 4 hours away from Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. And we talked to these tailors, and they showed me the so-called mitumba markets. Mitumba is a term for second-hand, basically, second-hand markets. So we went to the second-hand markets, and the story behind that is fascinating to me still, because these are markets filled with clothes from Europe and from the West. And from USA and stuff, So it is all of the clothes that people in Europe and USA drop into these donation bins that you see, in like industrial places and stuff. You throw your old clothes, and then you think like, someone in Africa might need this, someone might wear this. It's still good to wear, stuff like this. So you think, I'm doing something good, I'm helping someone out, and it's a donation, stuff like this. Well, the actual story behind this is actually that these fabrics are sold. These clothes are sold. It's an industry. It is not that they ship all of these tons and tons of clothing that European countries and Western countries don't want anymore, and distribute them there for free, and just all of this is just like covered by some sort of magical fund or something like this. It's an actual business. So people buy containers full of these old clothes. They bring them to Africa, and then they sell it there again to sellers. These sellers buy, big bulks of old clothing, basically, and then they bring it to the market, and they try to sell it again to local customers in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Ghana. I mean, you find this all over Africa. The markets are flooded with dead white man's clothes. This is how they call these markets in Ghana, for example, dead white man's clothes. And I saw that, and I was like, I was struck. I was like, wow, I had no idea about this. Like, and me, who was already very, involved in the African continent and what's going on there, I didn't know how this was, how this chain was working. So I saw mountains and mountains of these old fabrics, and basically what we came up with was that we started to use some of these fabrics that we found there and brought them to these tailors that this friend of mine who I met in Kenya told me about in this nearby village, and asked them to make new products out of it, new clothing out of it. So we bought a bunch of curtains, and I went to these tailors and I asked them if they could make me suits out of these curtains, and they did, and that's pretty much what you see right here. These are suits made from upcycled curtains, handmade in Kenya, in a rural area in Kenya, and beautiful fabrics, extremely exquisite. We choose very carefully, obviously. There's a big variety. There are mountains of old fabrics that just pile up there. And we just choose, good quality fabrics, things that are pleasing, things that are special, and we produce these suits that are one of a kind, that are once off, So that's pretty much the story behind this brand. And again, it's coming from where we started from, of like, okay, we want to support African communities. We want to do something sustainable. We want to, we had all of these different ethics, different philosophies that we wanted this brand to be. And it turned out that it's more or less randomly happened in a way that none of us knew about, would have had expected. So now we checked all of these boxes that we wanted to check, and are still developing new ideas of, okay, what else can we do with these fabrics? What if we throw these fabrics into like a industrial sort of a machine that makes new fabrics out of it? Stuff like this. So we are playing a lot with the thought of upcycling, and again with expanding locally in Africa. Maybe one more point to that because of all of these old fabrics washing over Africa, a lot of local tailors lose their jobs because people buy the cheap second-hand stuff from the West instead of investing in something that is locally and artisanally made. So all of the tailors and weavers and stuff, like they lose a lot of jobs basically. And then a second thing I would like to mention is that half of the fabrics that end up in Africa are actually in such bad shape that they would just be thrown onto a landfill. And it is not a landfill like, you might be used from Europe or something like this. It's just like, it's a dump site, basically, So these old fabrics just pile up somewhere in the environment. They pollute the water. They, the colors and the chemicals out of the fabrics wash into the water. The drinking water gets poisoned. The ground gets poisoned. There's a lot of negative consequences from this sort of hand-me-down mentality that the West has accumulated over the years and over through our sort of capitalistic system. But anyways, I think I talked a lot about the backgrounds. This is the product, and this is the fashion, and this is the design, and yeah, we are a unisex brand, so we are making these for everyone who feels like wearing a suit. Like they're pretty straight fit. They can, everyone can wear them. Let me give you a little twirl around here. So yeah, this is the sort of design it shows. It's very classic. It's very timeless. Um, and again, we have um, different fabrics. This one is a velvet suit made from an old velvet curtain. We used to have two of those. The other one is sold. Yeah, what else? Again, we liked the patterned fabrics a lot, simply also because this resembles the idea of the African identity, especially when we think back to these sort of fabrics. It is very embedded into the culture and the narrative that patterns and colors are native to the African continent. So yeah, this is what we decided to stick with, to just have many different colorways. This one is a peach orange, very beautiful one, as I find. Exactly, and all of them have a different feel to them. They're just, all of them are different fabrics, and just there's a large variety for everyone who wants to experiment around with a classical shape, but a sort of like colorful, youthful approach to it. Because suits are so boring. Like, I see people in suits and I'm bored because they're mainly black or blue and that's it. And with this, we are definitely like targeting a niche that a lot of people didn't even know they needed, but we got a lot of positive response already of people just being like, oh my God, I always wanted to have like a crazy suit, like a pattern suit, or just or just like a sort of mint green uh, uh, pastel suit. So yeah, this is where we are at, and yeah, in the future we're planning to make some jackets, and some coats, and just develop the idea more of like what is possible with the sort of limitations that we set for ourselves, which are using these sort of upcycled fabrics and producing all of this in Africa. So yeah, this is it. Okay, yeah, I think maybe, yeah, cool.
Thank you, Sydney, first of all. We do have a few questions coming in, and then I actually have a question too. One is, first off, are there any texts or books that you would recommend in relation to the history of Dutch wax prints that you had just walked us through before? Are there any writings that you feel like give a good kind of dive into that history?
I cannot quite remember the exact articles, but there are some really good articles on this topic. I would just Google it. I would just Google, the history of wax prints, Ankara prints. They have different names in different areas, but you will probably be you will find them pretty easily, I think.
And then also, given that you worked both in Nigeria and Kenya, how would you compare, you walked us a little bit through some pieces, but overall, how would you compare your experience in both countries? And in relation to Kenya specifically, do you have any recommendations to improve the experience for emerging designers?
Well, to compare Nigeria and Kenya is difficult. They are obviously two very different countries. Nigeria feels a little bit more difficult, to be honest, simply because, as I said, some of the infrastructure is not there. the corruption is really obscene. It is insane. So that just gets in the way of doing business, of moving things forward, of just like trying to make something, to create something. And I find Kenya is a little bit is just a few steps ahead in a way. It just feels easier. Everything there feels like, okay, there are things in place that you can use as a designer, as someone who wants to build something there that will help you flourish.
I'm back. If anyone else does have questions, do feel free to leave them in the chat in the stage if you are on Hopin, or also in the Facebook Live chat, and we'll get them to Sydney. In the meantime, since there are none, I might ask my question, which is, I love that all of the collection, each of the pieces has a name, and I love the relation to what you talked us through a bit of just the one-of-a-kindness and kind of caring for this work of art, really. And I've just been curious, how do you come up with the names?
Yeah, so as Jenny mentioned, the suits, since they're one of a kind, the idea was that we give each suit a name, so that that the wearer can build a sort of personal connection to the suit, that, or to the piece of clothing, whatever it is, like just that the idea of like clothing being something disposable, something that you wear and then you let go of it, you drop it off, you throw it away, whatever, that we break this through personalization, through identification. So yeah, we started to give these suits names, and also we write personalized notes to the people who purchase our products. And how we come up, or how I come up with the names for these suits, is just association, inspiration. I like to write. I used to be very in the poetry direction, so I just I look at a suit and like, okay, how does this feel? What does the color tell me? What is the vibe I get from this? And then I find a word or concept, and then I use the Swahili translation of this word, because these suits are made in Kenya, so that the connection there is that you recognize the name of the suit with the origin of the suit. And in the future, when we expand to other African countries, we would use probably names from those languages.
Is that what's next then? You mentioned also different pieces in addition to suits, but you're also looking at working in different parts of the continent?
I mean, like the plans are big. There are many ideas floating around, like to make this a Pan-African thing, to turn this whole hand-me-down trade into like a complete circular trade. So we collect all of these old fabrics and second-hand clothes and turn it into in industry in the end, an industry of upcycling, basically, and make Africa in a way the place for upcycled clothing, and maybe even more. Who knows, So the vision is endless. It's more about, okay, how to break this down. What is the next step? What is the next collection? What is the right products to do this with? Because, as I mentioned, it's not easy to have a very limited amount of fabrics and make something that is still in a way identifiable for a brand, so that people understand, like, this is a Emeka suit, they have to, like, you have to be able to recognize that, even though all of them look different. You understand? So when you have a Nike or something, someone wears Nike, the other one wears Nike, and you remember that, yeah, of course they look the same, they have the logo on it, they are both this sort of cut, blah 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 blah. But if every Nike in the world would have a different pattern, a different fabric, a different, it would be very difficult to recognize that. So this is the sort of challenges we're facing.
Interesting. Although I will say, especially on the Facebook chat, the suits are getting a lot of love from Afro Fashion Week Milano followers. So I think they're that you can recognize pretty quickly.
Cool.
I guess that's, if there aren't any other questions, how can people follow the brands and stay in touch about everything you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Instagram. Wait, I think I have my card somewhere here. Yes. Is that upside? Is that?
Perfect.
That's good. Okay. Well, this is how it's called, Emeka. If you type this in, Emeka Suits, so suits like suits, and you find us on Instagram. We have a very beautiful website. Check the website out. Yeah, just stay in touch. You know, we are grateful for everyone who joins the journey because it's a mission. You know, we have still a long way to go, but also so much energy to go there, and we're really happy about everyone who feels like joining and like, you know, participating in this journey.
Well, thank you, Sydney, so much for your time here this evening. Thanks everyone who tuned in also to listen. Here with Afro Fashion Week Milan, just after this, in a few minutes here on the stage again, you'll have a chance at a behind the scenes look at more art, some art of Christopher Bergetti Cancu, his works that are currently at the White Milano exhibition that's part of this year's Fashion Week. And then tomorrow, there's a full day of programming again. I'm starting with a watch party at 11 a.m. for today's fashion and empowerment panel, and then going all the way through the evening, actually all the way through to midnight, for a kind of a social mixer to which you are all invited, where you'll have a chance to connect with other attendees of Afro Fashion Week Milano this year. But for now, it's always strange, the digital, there's no like clapping, but we'll give a virtual hand to Sydney. Thank you again, Sydney, so much.
Sure.
And wishing all of you a great rest of the evening, great start to the weekend, and rest of Afro Fashion Week Milano.
Bye.
Ciao.